Unfortunately, Austria appear to have returned to somewhat old despotic habits. They basically abolished freedom by subjecting 2 million unvaccinated citizens into lockdown in an attempt to curtail the spread of coronavirus.
Just before we go on, aren't there like 9 million people in Austria?
I can't remember off the top of my head,
It's
but that
not a very
sounds
big
about
country.
right.
I think it was like 8 million or something. Or
Yeah,
9 million.
that must be about
A quarter of
about
fifth of the
35% of the population.
or at least a quarter, I would say. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a huge number of the citizens of Austria.
Yeah, but anyway, if we get the first web clip up here, Chancellor Alexander Schallenberg has said that we're not taking this step lightly, but unfortunately, it is necessary. Under current restrictions, unvaccinated people in Austria will only be allowed to leave home for limited reasons, such as working or buying food.
Right. Because apparently when they're working or buying food, the coronavirus doesn't spread.
Yeah.
Did the lockdowns work previously? I mean, we went through 3. I'm guessing the answer is no.
That would.
Gibraltar is currently at 100% vaccination rate, and yet they're having a COVID epidemic.
They're having a surge in cases, yeah.
Is that preventing it? Is it possibly that we're not in control of diseases?
That's probably it. That's probably it. But his reasons are as follows. Around 65% of Austria's population is fully vaccinated. It's one of the lowest rates in Western Europe, behind Germany, who I believe are at 41%. Austria are currently seeing the highest rate of daily infections for COVID-19 since the pandemic began. And the 7-day infection rate in some parts of Austria is more than 800 cases per 100,000 people. And he said that if the government doesn't do something drastic, the country is going to stay trapped in a vicious circle from one lockdown to the next.
But don't they think that people will gain immunity to it eventually?
Clearly he doesn't, or at least doesn't want to suggest the idea. I mean, on the basis that this is a strategy quite clearly introduced to coerce citizens into getting the vaccine, it seems to have worked.
I wonder how much Pfizer stock he owns.
I would like to know that
or
as well.
AstraZeneca or whatever they're using in Austria.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to know that too. I don't have that information to hand, but since the measures tightened, more Austrians have been getting jabbed. Apparently, the Vienna vaccination centres have been jam-packed ever since the policy was imposed. But in order to actually round people up to do this, they've basically just turned Austria into a police state, as the Guardian shows.
I bet if the Nazis were like, "Look, we're going to start exterminating Jews unless you convert to Christianity," the churches would have been full. You know, like they were like unsurprisingly.
Yeah. I have to be honest. At first, I was a little bit cautious to include this analogy, but it's almost the same degree of authoritarianism here.
It really seems that way. This seems purely Nazi. I can't stand it.
Yeah, but as this article from The Guardian shows, police in Austria have begun carrying out routine checks on commuters to ensure compliance with a nationwide lockdown for the unvaccinated. Those who are found to be in breach of the rules face fines in between 500 and 3,600 euros.
Just for not wearing their yellow stars.
For not wearing their yellow stars, just for going outside and not, making a strong enough case that you're going to work.
Unbelievable.
It's extraordinary.
That's awful. That's really awful.
It is. The Interior Minister says it can happen anytime and anywhere. Every citizen has to expect to be checked.
Okay, Führer.
Yeah.
What now? I mean, like when this is what totalitarianism looks like, when a segment of the population is targeted by the government. The government says, right, this portion of the population are the enemy. They are doing damage to the larger body that we are going to protect. And so we are empowered to persecute them. And it comes out looking like this.
Yeah.
That is just terrible.
It is. And I'm afraid it only gets more depressing because I managed to find an article from the BBC, which is a story from one of Austria's unvaccinated citizens. And the BBC, if we scroll down a little bit, John, it tells the story of Karina. It's really, really sad, to be honest. She's a young teacher in Vienna. She's not vaccinated against COVID-19, and she has every intention for it to remain that way.
I mean, she looks like she's in her 20s.
Yeah.
She's got absolutely no need to have the vaccine.
Yeah, exactly. And yes, so she's now under lockdown, just like the 2 million other unvaccinated Austrians. She's only allowed to leave her home for essential reasons like work or shopping for food, and she's completely barred from cafes and restaurants. And the reporter met her in Vienna Park, which is a dedicated place where she's allowed to take exercise. A dedicated place that allows her to take exercise.
Almost like somewhere where they concentrate the unvaccinated.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Going to the naughty square.
well, go into the concentration camp is what this looks like
Yeah.
to me. I mean, like, the fact that you're not allowed to mix with the pure blood vaccinated, sorry, you disgusting minority, subhuman.
That's pretty much what it is.
Don't go to the cafe or the restaurant. How dare you think about spending money there?
Yeah, I mean, she goes on to say, I was walking by some cafes this morning. It's a bit strange to look inside and to know that I couldn't go in. It makes you feel really excluded and ostracized. I'm one of those people that is made into the enemy, and that doesn't sit well.
Well, that's because you have been made into the enemy and you're being persecuted by your government for not doing something you don't need to do.
Not just by the government, naturally by the other people as well.
Well, yeah, of
who are
course.
elected almost to this position of superiority. I mean, you have
absolutely.
in such a society, you have a two-class system.
And her taxes are funding this. She is funding her own oppression.
Yeah.
The police who stop her are being paid for by her and treating her as if she's done something wrong by not following the government rules, because somehow she's putting other people at risk because apparently they don't think the vaccines work.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I mean, well, as we've discussed before, there are many valid reasons to not wish to take the vaccine.
Oh, yeah.
One is on the principle that you should just have a choice over what goes into your body.
Absolutely.
You'd think that would be a given.
Again, a traditional liberal principle that I shouldn't have to have something in me that I don't want.
You must get stabbed for your freedom.
Yes, this is the Harvey Weinstein policy of government in Austria.
Yeah. Another reason that she might be thinking about is the effects in 10 to 20 years' time, given how quickly these vaccines have been produced.
Yeah, that we simply can't know because not enough time has elapsed.
Austria is quite literally at the point now where a small jab is the price of freedom for its citizens. Possibly, forever.
I mean, that's a great question. When does this end? Because, I mean, even New Zealand have abandoned their idea of being COVID-free. Yeah. After, and again, the amount of tyranny on display in New Zealand was terrible. Jacinda, the horse, was just like, yeah, okay, so everyone get in your houses, no one's allowed to leave, and you don't get a choice. And eventually, after like one of the longest lockdowns in the world, they were like, so we can't actually exterminate COVID by making everyone prisoners because it's not how it works. It's never been how it works. God, this is actually annoying me.
You'd think this would bring about a governmental awareness of the fact that we have to learn to live with this virus.
It seems that way.
But instead, they've opted
for tyranny.
To hide. Yeah. To hide under the guise of tyranny.
Yeah, but they've opted to try and think that they're in control of it, which I just don't think they are.
No, they're not. But the only upside to this is that other citizens, like Karina, have decided to stand up for themselves. So if we could actually get the protest video up. So this is a march in Salzburg. Base message back there.
Very much.
They know.
Oh yeah. Good for them. We need to watch more.
I don't think so.
Is doing my ear in.
No.
But yeah, I mean, 2 million as well. Aren't the Austrian government like, that is a lot of people that we're targeting.
Yeah.
For ostracization and to make them literally not a part of our society as if they were Jews.
It's just an expression of how cut off they are, how callous they are in virtue of wider ambitions.
It's awful.
It is.
I mean, I don't know anything about Austrian politics, but I don't know how they stand.
No, I haven't dabbled too much into it either, but this hits a nerve with me, which is why, of course, I wanted to cover it. But all I can say to this really is if you are listening to us from Austria, we're with you. We're sorry that you have to put up with this, and needless to say, keep resisting.
Yeah, if you let them carry on like this, they're never going to stop.
If you don't fight to get your freedoms back because they have taken them from you, you never will.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast Lotus Eaters, you can catch us live 1 p.m. UK time on our website. And if you'd like more from us, you can also subscribe to find some of our premium content.
Yeah, we actually have absolutely loads on there now because we're over a year old at this point. So we've got a massive library of content that you can't find anywhere else, such as our regular series, which are Contemplations and Epochs. Contemplations, we have philosophical and scientific discussions. And in Epochs, we have long, in-depth conversations about things that happen in history. This is one we did recently about the Nika riots, the absolutely brutal Nika riots in Constantinople. I really enjoyed doing myself. But we also have we also have loads of expert articles from people who know what they're talking about, such as this one talking about the misnomer of postmodern neo-Marxism. You may well remember Jordan Peterson getting castigated by left-wing activists for using the phrase. Well, it is a bit of a misnomer, but Thomas happens to be an expert in this subject, and so he takes you through it. And as you can see, there is a silver and gold tier member audio track that goes along with it. So if you don't want to have to read it, you can just listen to it instead. But we also have a bunch of premium podcasts that we can't really host on YouTube because of editorial guidelines, shall we say, such as Harry doing this excellent one, What Happened to the January 6th Rioters, and another one, in fact, that Harry and myself did about a whistleblower from a German public broadcaster talking about the COVID coverage and the particularly engineered narrative in which they can't talk about certain things. And so this leaves a bunch of questions up in the air, and we explore that. Again, editorial guidelines mean we can't really host that elsewhere. We also have a bunch of really excellent interviews. I did one recently with a chap called Philip Tanzer. He's if you're a men's rights activist, you may have heard of him because he comes out of that space, but he's also an ex-gay porn star who's turned conservative activist who has some very interesting opinions.
Very interesting trajectory to take.
Yeah, it's the sort of person you're probably not going to meet in your regular life, but he's a fascinating guy. He's a really nice chap. And also, follow us on alternative media because, of course, we want to break the stranglehold of Silicon Valley over everything that we do. And this means that follow us on platforms like Getter, where you can follow Lotus_com to get all the latest updates from us. And also, we are speaking, or I am speaking, at a conference hosted by Getter at the London O2, the Indigo section of the London O2 on December the 8th. I'll be speaking there it's part of the Counterculture conference, where we're talking about why what is happening to the West is happening and what we can do about it. So part of that is following us on Getter and coming and see us, and of course, subscribe because that keeps everything running.